What's going on, everybody? This is Jeff with Living in Arizona, and today we're going to talk about edible foods in Arizona. So there are things that you can forage in and around Arizona. Now, before you go out and just start eating things off the cactuses and eating these leaves and things off the mesquite tree, do a little bit more research. This is just an introduction to ideas about things that you could possibly eat around the desert and things that Native Americans and people who lived here many generations ago used to eat when they would forage around Arizona. Believe it or not, there are fruits and different types of plants that you can eat. And obviously in times that we're living in right now, you know, being that we're in this pandemic, survival, you know, you're kind of like, well, if I did go hungry and I'm living in Phoenix, Arizona, where am I going to get water? Where am I going to get food? So this does have a useful utility for you in this case. And so let's go ahead and dive in here. If you're new to this channel, you can subscribe to Living in Arizona to keep up to date with things going on across Arizona. So one of the very first plants that I want to talk about that you can eat is a jojoba. Some call it, it sounds like a jojoba, but it's a jojoba tree. Basically, it looks like this, okay? You'll notice it's, you'll see them kind of all around different parts of Phoenix and the desert, but it produces a little bean, and you can actually eat the bean. I've eaten the bean as a kid. I used to go out and forage myself. Now, that was on my own, without any sort of guidance. It might have been dangerous. It wasn't always the best thing to do, but you know, jojoba beans are pretty bitter. You know, when it rains, you know, they're kind of soft, but they're pretty bitter to eat. You just pluck them off there, you pop them out of the shell, and you just eat them. They're not like a pistachio or anything, but they're called jojobas, and you know, you can eat them. Another one that you can eat is a prickly pear. So these prickly pear fruits are pretty good. The problem with the prickly pear fruit is it's got these little splinters on them, these little cactus on. So there's the main prickly pear, the green right here, right? So you can see right here, okay? You can, I've seen those eaten in Mexico. They actually eat this part of the cactus. They like steam it or like boil it, but this is the fruit that you eat. But you see right here, there's little like these little like thorns. But they get in your skin and they're hard to get out, and they're all over. You can see one popping up right there, right? So those are called prickly pear. You can eat those if you really need to. Basically, you cut it open and kind of just pull out the fruit. It does actually have a pretty sweet fruit taste, and you may have already eaten prickly pear. Some of you. I don't know how exciting you guys get with things, but yeah, a prickly pear is pretty, it's pretty tasty. You'll see them again like this. This is a prickly pear, especially in the winter or in the springtime, they really come out, and that's a prickly pear fruit. Another one that's kind of interesting, I guess, if you'll see hummingbirds going for this. This is a tuberosa. These kind of plants, you know, like I said, typically they're succulent kind of plants that hummingbirds are going for, but they're like a tubular flower. They do have a little bit of nectar or a little bit of like kind of like, I don't know, I'm not going to sit here and say they're the most sweet, tasty thing, but, you know, if in an event, you know, what do they call it? SHFT, TF, whatever, SHIT hits the fan, so to speak. I don't know the acronym. I keep forgetting it. But anyway, in that event, you could probably eat that. Another one that you guys have probably already had is agave tequila, but the agave plant, also a aloe vera kind of plant. You can eat that. If you come down here, right here it says food. Each agave plant produces several pounds of edible flower during its final season. The stalks, which are ready during the summer before the blossom, weigh several pounds. Roasted, they are sweet and can be chewed to extract agave. Like sugar cane, when dried out, the stalks can make didgeridoos. The leaves may be collected in winter and spring, and where the plants are rich in sap for eating. Some people also put it on their sunburns, if it's an aloe vera or an agave. You know, and you have these things like beverages in tequila, so they make agave tequila. I think that's what Patron is, right? So that's Mesoamerica to produce pulque, an alcoholic beverage. The flower shoot is cut out of the sap, collected and subsequently fermented. By distillation, a spirit called mezcal is prepared. You guys have maybe heard of, there's like this, I'm not going to get into it, but there's this like spirit that they used to see called, some will call it mezcalito. I'm not going to get too much into it, but you guys can do a little bit of research, but that's where the term you know, mezcal, Mesoamerica, mezcalito. Just look into it if you guys want. You might not be able to find too much information. I don't know how much is available about that, but anyway, you know, the Mesoamerican people, they do things like in South America with out in with ayahuasca out here in the desert in Arizona. They have this plant called peyote. I'm not going to get too far into all that, but these are things where, you know, when you take peyote or ayahuasca, you enter into another realm. And so there are plants around here. So you have to be careful. You know, like I said in the beginning, there was a disclaimer. You have to be careful with eating some of these things. Don't just go out there and say, here's a nut, here's a bean, here's a pod. Let me try it. Because some of these things are actually dangerous to eat. Anyway, another thing that you can eat is at the top of a saguaro, you'll see they have also fruit. So saguaro fruit, you can actually eat that. So traditionally, the saguaro harvest was a village-oriented activity conducted by women, but as a cultural changes occurred over the last 500 years, it became family-based. Good old saguaros. You can eat their saguaro fruits. You'll see them at the top of the saguaros, right? So anyways, I just wanted to point that out. The next thing you can eat and well cook with is mesquite. So mesquites, you know, when you go to the grocery store, they'll say they got wood. They might have I don't know what type of wood they have there, hickory or mesquite. And so mesquite, if back in the old days, I don't know if it's legal anymore, but you know, back in the cowboys' days, if they wanted to have a barbecue, they just pull some dead branches off of mesquite, and they would have a mesquite fire. And so people like mesquite. So it's once the pod is dry, the whole pod is edible and can be ground into flour and made into a bread. So that's the pod of the mesquite. It's kind of like this fibrous yellow pod. It's like this long and it's very fibrous, but they used to turn that into a flour to make bread. But like I said, the lumber, mesquite lumber, the flavor of the mesquite, just, but not all of them are indigenous and whatnot. And mesquites are easily mixed up with ironwood trees. Maybe it's I wouldn't call a Palo Verde a mesquite. You can tell the difference between a Palo Verde and a mesquite. Mesquites are usually, they look kind of dead. They're more of like a dark brown black color, and a Palo Verde is green. That's why it's called Palo Verde, tall green. So Palo Verdes stay green. They're like an evergreen, and they produce like this yellow flower. And I think even those flowers have been known to be edible. There is a cactus out there called the barrel cactus that you can eat. And the barrel cactus is a member of the cacti or cactus family, but you can see it's got these nice fruits on there. It kind of looks like a mini saguaro, but there is actually a disclaimer that you should put out there about some barrel cactuses. They kind of contain like a little bit more bacteria, so sometimes not all, you can't eat all of the, it's kind of hit or miss. There is some sort of disclaimer that's out there about barrel cactuses. I know that as a kid I did eat the barrel cactus. Like I said, I ate the prickly pear, the saguaro fruit, the barrel cactus. I tried them all just because I'd be out there, you know, digging forts and building things and tree houses out in the Palo Verde trees in the desert. That's what you get when you're a desert kid, right? You're just out in the desert is your forest. Anyway, so I did eat a barrel cactus fruit one time. They're hard to get off. You can actually the barrel cactus, the thorns on there are kind of more condensed and they kind of hook a little bit, but they're like kind of like a crunchy black seed in the middle, especially if it's like a yellow fruit before it actually flowers. It's like a yellow or like a black fruit. It's kind of crunchy. It's a little bit bitter, I would say. It's, you know, a little bit, maybe a hint of sweetness depending on if you get it in the right season, I guess. But I haven't like made a habit of eating barrel cactus. Probably the one that I did eat the most of in all my days is probably a prickly pear. I did occasionally eat jojoba beans, but for the most part it was the prickly pears. So anyways, guys, I just wanted to make this quick video. Hope you guys liked it, and we'll see you guys on the next one. And do subscribe if you enjoy this video, and share it with your friends and family if you want. Talking about things that you can eat from around the Arizona desert.